Hello, I thought it was about time I did a video on Swift sunroofs, and more specifically, because this will cover in this video, would be water ingress in the front of the Swifts. 9 times out of 10 it is a sunroof, but it also can be a few other things, and that is kind of age related. It depends on how old the caravan is as to the differences in the water ingress issues, and the reason I say that is because obviously the construction has changed from wood to GRP and polyurethane, so depending on what caravan you have, can depend on the different water ingress issues. So I'll start off with vans that are around about 2013 and before, so they are fully wood. So if you're having water ingress issues with those, it can be one of 3 things. It can be the sunroof, it can be the window rubber around the windows, or it can be the hinge bar that the window is actually attached to. And the reason for this is because of the wood. If the sealant fails behind the hinge bar, the screws then push the water through the screws and into the wood and then into the caravan itself. Now the downside of this issue is it's very difficult to spot, and it's very difficult to see if you've actually solved it. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about later in the video of how to actually find where the water's coming in don't really apply to 13 vans or older, because they have the wood in them. So the only way to do that is to strip it and have a look physically where the water's coming in. Obviously the higher up it is, the more likely it's going to be either the hinge bar or the sunroof. If it's low down and it stops halfway up the window, then it could possibly be the window rubber. So I'm just going to show you what the hinge bar looks like. This is a newer version, but it's the same thing. So I shall just show you now. So this is the hinge bar. So as the name suggests, it's the bar that hinges the windows, and like I said, if the sealant goes behind that and they have screws going into wood, then the screws can transport the water through into the wood, and then the wood will transport into the inside of the caravan, and then down through the front. So it can be that, can also be the sunroof or the window rubbers. So the only way to really find that out is to strip the inside out and physically see where the watermark is. Unfortunately there's no real other way of doing that. It's a bit of an old-fashioned way of doing it, but that's the way to do it. Then once you've done that, once you've found out where it is, you can then address it by replacing the hinge bar and then replacing the sealant. So the reason it's quite difficult to find if you stop the water ingress by putting any tape over on 2013 vans is because you don't physically see it coming out inside the caravan. So because it's all made out of wood, obviously the wood soaks up all the water and you can't physically see it coming out. With the newer ones, when you've got the polyurethane and GRP, because the polyurethane and GRP don't soak the water up, then you see the water running down the inside of the caravan, generally in the front, offside or near side windows, and then you can tell whether that's stopped. But in the 13 vans, because the wood soaks all the water up, you can't tell whether you've stopped it. So even if you put tape over the sunroof or across the hinge bar or even around the window rubbers, you can't tell whether that's actually physically stopped it, because you can't see any physical signs of water ingress, i.e. it's not running down the walls, it's just being soaked up in the woodwork. So going on to 2014 and above, that's when they started using the GRP and polyurethane. So in 2014 they were using polyurethane around the windows and around the structure of the caravan. They weren't using the GRP on the wall boards, so that's still the wood on 2014, which is what got me thinking about doing this video, actually, because I saw a customer yesterday and he had that very thing. So he had he had polyurethane around the windows, but it was still wood. So what was happening is he was seeing the wood go damp, but he didn't catch it until that wood had actually soaked as much water as it could up, and then the water started being pushed inside the van and down the wall. That's when he saw it. So unfortunately for him, by the time he's seen that, it's too late. The damage has already been done. he's going to have to repair the wall board around the windows, and it had actually damaged the front shelf as well, which is a bit unfortunate. But again, unfortunately, you don't see that initial water ingress physically running down the outside of the walls when you've got wood inside the caravan. So from his point of view, we had to still work out what the problem was. I am still saying it's 95% the sunroof, but again, because he had the polyurethane underneath the window hinge bar, the likelihood of it is it isn't that, because when you put screws into polyurethane, the main reason that Swift started using this was because polyurethane is impervious to water. The screws go into something that's impervious, so even if the sealant breaks down and the water goes through the screw, it's then hitting the polyurethane and coming back out again. So that's the beauty of the polyurethane, is it stops that transfer of water inside the caravan. That's what wood does, it transfers water. So if you've got the wood there, it pushes it in. If you've got the polyurethane, it just pushes it back out again. So the likelihood of it being the hinge bar was fairly slim. Still can be the window rubbers. So because his had been saturated and he'd started to see water physically coming down the inside of the caravan on the walls, what we then did was we got some tape. Well, we didn't have it, but I suggested that he get some tape, which is the Gorilla Tape. Don't use duct tape. And this is what got me talking to him in the first place, is he said, have you got any duct tape, to his friend? And I said, what do you want that for? It started a conversation going. He said, I want to tape up the sunroof. Now, duct tape is a nightmare to get off, so it's best to use a clear Gorilla Tape. You can get it from wherever you get tape from, but that's the best stuff. So what I suggested to him was to tape around the sunroof, wait for a downpour, see if that stopped any water coming in physically through the walls. Now this one I'm about to show you now is I've been doing just that. We had a customer report that the water was coming down the walls. We replaced the window rubber on the off chance that it was that, because it's easy to do. It was still coming in. Now actually, with this caravan I'm in now, which I'm just about to show you, we were having it running in on the off side of the caravan. And then as we've moved it, brought it back to base, it's now running in on the near side. Now that's obviously because the van's tilted. So that kind of goes to prove that it's got to be the sunroof, because you wouldn't get the two different sides leaking just because we moved the caravan. So what I did was I have taped up the front, which you probably saw in the last section, with Gorilla Tape. I'll show you a little bit closer in a second. I dried out the front, then taped up the sunroof, and then kept an eye on it in downpours, and lo and behold, the water has stopped running down the walls. Now this is full GRP and polyurethane, so there's no wood in this, so literally as soon as the water comes and hits the inside of the van, you can see it running down the walls. So I'm just going to flip this around and show you the inside of this caravan as to where we were seeing the water, and then I'll go out and show you how I put the tape on. So here you can see, I mean, the water was coming down here. You can just see a faint line of where it was coming down, and if you peel this back, there was water under there, and it's physically, you can see it running out. And because it's hit the GRP, it will run straight down. Now the downside is, if you don't get it quick enough, it will start to mark this this wood here, and you have to replace that. Now it was running down there. We replaced the window rubber, it was still doing it, and as I brought it back and it's tilted the other way, it started coming out of there. So what we did is, I'll show you. Sorry about the camera work. Yeah, so you can see there that we've put the Gorilla Tape all the way around the sunroof to physically give it a barrier of water coming in. So once we've done that, that physically stops it, and then we can tell if the water stops coming through and down and into the caravan, which it has done. We've had several downpours, and it's not coming in. So that's fairly conclusive that that's what it is. So we are going to have to replace that sunroof, and that's the way to do it. So Oh, by the way, I'll be talking about cracks in a minute. This is the water ingress side of it. We will get to the cracks because that's a different problem. So yeah, that's how to solve it, or at least to prove it, so that we then know that the sunroof needs to be replaced. So back in the office again. What I didn't mention there was, obviously, if it doesn't stop and the water is still coming in, then it is more likely to be the window rubber. But again, I'm saying probably 95% of the time it's going to be the sunroof, unfortunately. The window rubber can fail, but not as often as the sunroof does. We've tried it several times now and replaced window rubber thinking that's what it is. It's turned out to be the sunroof. Back again, sorry, I'm doing this in between customers. So that's the water ingress issue in the sunroofs. Now, you then, once you've decided that that is the issue, then you need to get it fixed. Now it completely depends on whether you've got it under warranty still or not. So if you bought it new, chances are it's under warranty, providing you've had a service every year. And then you can go to your local dealer or whoever does it and then put a warranty claim in. And then you've done the hard work, really. You've kind of proven that that's what it is. They might need to do their own research, I don't know. But at least you can go to them and say, look, sunroof's leaking, we've done this and done that. I've seen a few customers come in and say, oh, my mate down the road says he can do it. I wouldn't do that. We had to go on a training course. We get the process sheets from Swift. We get the right glue. We get the right preparation stuff for the plastic. And there's a way of doing it. You have to actually cut the sunroof out and then re-stick a new one back in again. So unless someone's been trained to do it, I mean, obviously it's up to you, but I wouldn't recommend that. Obviously, if it's out of warranty, if it's in warranty, you're going to go to someone who knows what they're doing. If it's out of warranty, you're looking at about an £800 job. It takes about 4 or 5 hours and it has to be left in overnight. It's getting the sunroof is sometimes the biggest problem. Now up to, I can't remember, I think it's either 2018 or 19, they changed from polyplastic to Dometic. And when it's under warranty, this probably won't affect you, but we have issues because the Dometic say it's nothing to do with them, and then Swift say it's nothing to do with those. But so we kind of ended up going between the two. But at the moment, they're pretty good. So you send in a photograph of it leaking, especially if it's water ingress, and then they'll cover it and they'll send you all the bits you need. But don't forget, have the dealer or yourself check that front shelf and the top shelf as well. If they're damaged for water ingress, you have to replace those. So it's not just the sunroof. That's the downside with the GRP and polyurethane. It's great because it doesn't get the walls wet, but then what happens is if you don't catch it quick enough, it's then getting the furniture wet. So we've seen one where the bed bunks needed replacing. Even the upholstery was soaking wet, and that needed replacing as well on a severe case. So make sure you get everything covered and everything under warranty that you need to be able to get it back to how it is, how it should be. So that's how to get it fixed. Again, if it's private, then go to someone who knows what they're doing, and it should be around about the £800-900 mark, something like that. Unless you need yourself doing, then obviously it ramps up a little bit. So that's that. So the next issue we talk about is the cracking. So what Swift, and this is a bit of my two penneth, but my thoughts on it is what happened was Swift realised that they were needed to up the ante with the sealant. So they put more sealant in to stop it leaking, which is great. Now the problem with that is then it pushes the stress into the actual plastic itself, and then we're starting to see stress cracks. So there's more sealant in, and then Dometic are then seeing, or we're seeing that the sunroofs are actually cracking, and generally they'll crack right in the middle, and that's kind of validation that is a stress crack, because if it's going to be a stress crack, it's going to crack in where the most amount of stress is, which is equal distance between the two sides. So if it cracks right down the middle, it's obviously it's a stress crack. You get your magic Gorilla Tape again. I think I've got some here. Here's some Gorilla Tape. That's the Gorilla Tape. Okay, get magic Gorilla Tape again. If it's cracked right down the middle, drill a tiny hole at the bottom of the crack to stop it going any further, and then get some of that stuff and put it over it. If it's already started to fill up with water, so say it's stress cracked when you weren't there and you've got half a sunroof full of water, you can drill holes in that to let it out. You won't invalidate your warranty or anything, just a couple of little holes in the bottom, and then obviously the water will come out, because what you don't want is that filling up through condensation as much as actual physical rain getting in, because once it's blown you get condensation, and then that just kind of gets worse and worse. So the more water you get, and then the more condensation you get, the more it's going to fill up, and it keeps on going. So yeah, you want to get rid of that. So drill some holes, let that water out, and then it will kind of, it will breathe itself anyway. So to stop any more water getting in the crack, then put some Gorilla Tape on, and then obviously, I mean, the only ones we're seeing with the stress cracks are generally the Dometic ones, which are after 2019. So that's we're not really seeing the polyplastic ones crack for some reason, but I think that's because there was less sealant, so that's when you get the water ingress issue, and not the stress cracks, I would assume. I'm not sure on that, but that sounds about right. So again, when it has cracked, then you go to warranty, because generally it's within 2019. Most people are still under warranty when you've at that age. Okay, so that's your stress cracks, and your water ingress. Just to recap, so 2013 and before, you're going to struggle to find it because it's all wood and it just soaks it up. So you have to strip it all down, have a look where it's coming in, fix the problem, and then redo the ball board. 2014, they had the polyurethane around the windows, but you'll still get the wood go wet. So again, it's a bit harder to see, and by the time you do see it, the damage has been done, so you have to replace the wood and sometimes the shelf. Then once you get into full GRP and polyurethane, in 2017, because in 16 it was hardwood, so you've still got wood there, but in 17, when you've gone to full GRP and polyurethane, you will see the water running down the walls, and if you're lucky enough to be there at the time, then you can obviously address it in the way I've seen. Get your tape, put some around the sunroof, it stops, there you go, that's what the problem is. And then once you start getting into 2019, I had one this morning actually, a guy came in, the van hasn't moved, it's 2 years old, got a stress crack right up at the front of it, hasn't even moved. So obviously it's to do with the weather and the way that the vans are moving naturally, nothing to do with them bouncing down the road or you're going too fast or anything like that. I have had some issues with Dometic, saying that it's fitted incorrectly. So when we go to Swift, they'll say, oh, it's a Dometic issue, then Dometic say no, it's a Swift issue, like I mentioned before. This is more to do with the cracks. They're saying that they fitted it wrong, and then they're saying, Swift are then saying that it's a Dometic problem. Now again, my 2 penneth again, it does tend to be worse on the wider vans because it's an 8-foot wide van, therefore it's a wider span, you've got more chance of stress. Now I don't think they've done this, but if it was me, I probably would have ramped up the plastic to make it stronger to allow for the extra stress, but I think all they've done is made the sunroofs bigger, and not realized about this stress cracking. So yeah, that's your stress cracks. I think that's it really. I don't, again, my 2 penneth again, I don't know why they don't stop doing them. I can't understand. I don't think, I mean, your customers, it might be interesting for you to put in the notes what you think, but would it stop you buying a Caravan if it didn't have a sunroof in it? Say there was a bigger Hecky, they went back to the Hecky 2, didn't have a sunroof, didn't put the cupboards in, so you didn't get that claustrophobic feeling when you went in. Would it affect your buying choice? Because knowing what we know now, it's going to be an issue further on. And the other thing to say at this point actually is, when we replace the sunroofs, all we're doing is doing exactly the same process as they did in the factory when they fitted it. So I can't see why it's not going to happen again. All we're doing is using the same process. So you're going to get a crack, you're going to get water ingress. It's an ongoing thing. I don't think they haven't come up with a solution to the actual problem itself. So unfortunately, I think, you know, even if you have a new one, a few years down the line, you're going to get the problem again, and that is only to remain to be seen. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but to me, if they haven't solved the problem and we're just doing the same thing they do, it's going to happen again. Yeah, back to the point. Would you not buy a Caravan and would go to another manufacturer if it didn't have that sunroof in, or would it be something that you think, well, actually, I'm not that bothered, it's not the end of the world, I'd rather have a van where the water ingress is tight, because the rest of the van's great. Yeah, we don't see hardly any problems when there's a few issues when they don't put sealant in when they should, but you know, you're gonna get that a little bit. But this issue seems to be, it's not if, it's when, it seems to be. But again, comments in the bottom would be good. There might be thousands out there that have no problem whatsoever, and we're just obviously seeing the bad ones. So it'll be interesting to see what you think, whether you would buy a Caravan without a sunroof in it. From Swift's point of view, it will save them the cost of drilling the hole in the front panel. It will save the cost of the sunroof, and it will save a huge amount of warranty claims. And also the hassle you guys get from having to sort all this out and then, you know, waiting for sunroofs and then taking it to the dealer and getting everything done. I think it's a much better thing to have is a Caravan without a sunroof in it that isn't going to leak, so therefore you don't get the problem. But again, you know, I don't build Caravans. That's just my my two penneth there. So hopefully that's covered everything. Sorry, it's been a bit disjointed. I've had customers coming in. If this video does do well, I'll probably redo it a little bit better. But I think that's covered everything. Any questions? Obviously, I'm here to help. Pop a question in the bottom there, and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, so hope that all makes sense, and I'll catch you next time.